Greetings, YouTube. Season 3 of Overwatch 2 has just arrived. The patch was previewed yesterday. Everybody read the patch, but today on my second channel here, I'm going to give you more thoughts on what I think about the patch, because yesterday on my main channel, I just kind of covered and demonstrated the changes. So I'm going to be a bit more authentic right now. I'm live on Twitch right now, and of course, if you want to get the Ash two of spades or 7 of spades spray and the Ash socialite skin, come on over to Twitch at twitch.tv/KarQ. Chat right here. Very friendly people, I would hope. And you lurk or watch the stream and you will earn these rewards for your game. But let's go over the patch really quick. Balance only, not the whole patch. So the first thing they're going to change in Overwatch 2 Season 3 is that the maximum ultimate charge retained when swapping heroes reduced from 30 to 25%. They noted that as part of this patch, there was a tuning pass for how often ultimates were being generated, so we expect to see several alt cost adjustments across multiple heroes. So they actually want to encourage less usage of ultimates, so they're reducing the amount changed if you swap. This is pretty minor. 5% is not that big of a deal. I always hear this argument from SVB where like it feels bad for tanks because tanks are very counter matchup-y. So if they start Winston and you're on like a Zarya and you die first on Zarya, but you built like 35% of your ult and you swap to Roadhog, you still retain so much charge that it just feels bad as a tank. That's his argument there. This doesn't really change it too much, I'm going to be honest with you. The biggest dev comment here is mentioning that the other heroes will get more ult charge cost adjustments. That's going to be more significant than this. This doesn't really affect anything from Season 2 to Season 3, I would say. But it's a small little tune. Okay, cool. Tank role passive change. The health totals for all tanks will be lower when playing any game mode that does not have a role queue. Health totals will remain the same for tanks when playing any role queue enabled game. So the only two role queue games right now is quick play role queue and obviously competitive, the two main most popular modes. This will just affect the tank HP pools to address the power of the heroes in game modes where there can be multiple of them on the same team. Open queue, arcade, mystery heroes. Because Overwatch 2 tanks were tuned to be a single tank, they made all the tanks like super buffed, right? In Overwatch 1, Zarya had 400 HP. In Overwatch 2, she has 2 bubbles and 475 HP. In Overwatch 1, Roadhog had 600 HP. In Overwatch 2, she has 700. So all these are nerfs to the health for tanks, so it doesn't feel too oppressive when you play against a million tanks in the other game modes. Sure. Okay. Balance changes. Role queue, nothing changes in the main game mode, but non-role queue, she loses 150 health. That's fine. No change there. Doomfist, nothing changes in role queue, but non-role queue, he loses 150 health. So the thing I don't like is that every tank lost 150 health flat, it seems like, in the other modes. I think it should scale. They should all lose like 25% of their health, because D.Va has a larger health pool in total in general. She's got like 650 health or something, right? So she's down to 500, but Doomfist starts at 450, he's down to 300. Like losing 150 health with 450 base is relatively more HP to Doomfist than it is for D.Va. Does that make any sense? Like if D.Va's total HP is 650, 150 divided by 650 is like 20 something, 22% of her health. But 150 HP of Doomfist's 450 is like 33% of his HP. Does that make sense? Doomfist technically loses more in this, so they just remove flat HP from all of them, which I disagree with. They should be relatively scaled. Make sense? So I don't like that. Like Junker Queen. So Junker Queen is actually getting buffed in the main game, like role queue, where her health is going from 425 to 450. I don't think this is gonna make Junker Queen any more viable than she already is. This doesn't change too much for her. I think Junker Queen is going to fall behind to the other tanks still. We're going to get to Wrecking Ball and Rhine in a second. Let me finish all the tanks and I'll tell you which tanks I think are going to be meta. Junker Queen's decent buff, 25 extra HP. Orissa's going to get no nerf in role queue, non-role queue. We ignore arcade. Biggest thing is augmented fusion driver. The fall off range reduced from 25 to 15 meters. So this is actually a bigger nerf than people expect. When you spear someone, in Season 2 especially, if you speared someone at like mid to long range, you were able to follow up headshot them and actually burst through that 200 HP because Orisa does so much damage at medium ranges. With this nerf, it means your damage will start scaling or decreasing at 15 meters from target. So if I'm target's here, Orisa's here. My damage is going to start ramping back as soon as I move further away from them. Before, I need to be at 25 meters before the damage started ramping down. So this will actually affect her burst, especially at mid-range if she lands a medium-range spear, and overall DPS when poking from afar. So this is actually a significant nerf. I don't think this is going to nerf her completely. Orisa's still quite powerful up close. I think Orisa's still like probably an S tier hero. Worst case, still an A tier hero, because Spear is still on such a short cooldown. Spear does a lot. I've always said Spear feels like a better Sigma rock. It's faster, easier to hit, and it's a similar cooldown. But anyways, super strong still. Ramattra is getting a small nerf where the ultimate cost is going to increase by 12%, and there's a timer now for his ultimate. Instead of it pausing, it only lasts up to 20 seconds. Now, 20 seconds is still really damn long. This part you won't feel too much, but the fact that the ultimate cost is a little bit more expensive is probably the bigger change. But overall, I still think Ramattra is like an S tier hero. If I'm not mistaken, near the end of season 2, a lot of contenders and high-level pros were scrimming with Ramattra because he's like incredibly good. Once people realize like you need to play certain heroes to counter his ultimate because it's just too good. It's a team fight win basically if done correctly. Super tanky. So I would say Ramattra is probably still S. Because people are getting better and better with him every single day, and he can be really damn good. So, yeah. Reinhardt is getting some spicy buffs. Nothing changed with HP and roll Q, so let's talk about his changes here, where first, his Rocket Hammer knockback impulse is reduced from 10 to 6. This doesn't mean much to people, but this basically means the knockback with the swings is down 40%. That one you can sort of imagine or visualize a little bit more. This will affect him if you like pin him into like a wall near a ledge and you want to swing to boop them off on the high ground or onto the ground. For example, end of King's Row second phase, you're just about to cap as Ryan, then you pin like their tank and you go, you know that little hole before you go into that horseshoe where the mega health pack is, you can pin into that wall and then swing once to the left side or right to left and it'll whack people down that hole. That's what a lot of Reinhardts do. It's gonna nerf those specific instances. However, I've talked to a few Ryan mains. I talked to Flats. I messaged Flats when I saw this change. I'm like, what do you think? Because he's obviously one of the Ryan mains that I know. He's like, I want to say this is more of like a buff in most cases. Like, yes, the knockback into the hole is more situational, but in general, you're going to be swinging into people in more cases than you are booping them off. So that he thinks it's a net buff, unless he changed his mind on this since the last time I spoke with him. A net buff. Less knockback, less ping-ponging around means you can pretty much keep them in front of you, and heroes that have movement speed can't utilize that knockback to push themselves or propel themselves forward. For example, if you're a Lucio player or like a soldier with sprint, sometimes if you get bumped by the knockback on the hammer, you use that momentum and you use your movement to kind of propel yourself out of his range. With less of that, again, I think it's a net buff. Charge cooldown 1 second less. Okay, that's fine. Good buff. This is a big buff with Fire Strike. Damage increasing from 90 to 100 means you hit a breakpoint now. And because you store 2 Fire Strikes, back-to-back shots will kill 200 HP targets. And this is the reason why I think Baptiste is going to be rising up in the ranks as well, because Bap Ryan is a great combo. And now with Window Fire Strike, you can one-shot again. That's a pretty good combo, because Baptiste Amplification Matrix does 2x the damage. Earth Shatter is going to do less damage up close. You won't be able to one-shot 200 HP heroes anymore and 250 HP heroes. I always thought that was a little cheesy against Reinhardt, so like I'm okay with this. But the CC is going to be a little bit longer, and the cost is going up. But Ryan's not the only one with alt cost going up. It seems like a lot of other tanks, especially when we scroll down, a lot of them had their alt cost increase. So this is just relative power scaling. That's okay. This is a decent nerf, but the CC being a little longer, I think allows you to get an extra swing and Fire Strike. Shatter 170 into a follow-up Fire Strike with people in the back. That's okay. Overall, this is a big net buff to Reinhardt. Overall, I would say. Roadhog. Roadhog got the big nerfs near the end of Season 2 patch, where they nerfed his one-shot capability with heroes being a little further away from him. They're still sort of one-shottable if they don't have an escape ability. You shoot them first, you walk a little closer. That said, that definitely nerfed his power, so they're giving him a little bit more power back in his ultimate, where the duration is going to increase by 2 seconds. I think Roadhog's probably a solid B hero still. He's no longer S like he was in Season 2, but he's like, I think he's still playable, if I'm gonna be honest with you. And then the cost is going up. I'm ignoring the roll queue stuff. The only change for Sigma is his flux is going up in cost. Sigma's always been a strong hero at A tier in my opinion. Nothing changes here. Still a great pick in a lot of maps. Winston is actually getting a no change in roll queue in the health, but the nerf on the bubble, 50 HP. Winston has played a lot in Asian regions because of coordinated dive. I don't think this is actually going to affect him in the meta. Like, a lot of people don't even shoot the bubble to begin with. Maybe in high level play, maybe with some breakpoints like Cassidy fanning the hammer and people pressuring the bubble. It might change sometimes where the bubble cracks, but in general, this shouldn't affect him too much. I think Winston's still an A tier hero, I would say. Still a great dive hero. Okay, Wrecking Ball might be the biggest winner amongst the tanks in this patch, where his HP is changing. So right now, Ball has, Season 2 Ball had 600 white health, 100 armor. He's gonna lose 150 of his white health is gonna be shifted to blue shield health. Blue shield health heals at 30 HP per second after not taking damage. White health, it can be normal health. I call it white because it's easy by color, right? Because orange for armor, green for overhealth. Overhealth has no unique properties. They didn't remove any of his 100 armor, so this is actually a huge buff to his HP. I heard some ball mains say they don't actually need to change anything with his HP. He's already super tanky. If he pops his overhealth with his adaptive shields over his shield health, that 150 shield health underneath still regenerates, if I'm not mistaken, because the top layer isn't taking damage. I think the under layer will heal, but I had to double check that. That is a this is the huge buff to Ball. The next big buff to Ball is 20% increase uptime to pile driver. 10 to 8 seconds, 20% faster for pile drive back-to-back. Ball, that's gonna be scary. The mine is gonna cost a bit more, but that's scaled based on the other heroes as well. All of them have longer ults to build. However, the arming time being reduced to 1 second, this doesn't look like much, 0.5 seconds, but that's also like 33% increase in relative arming time. As soon as Ball mined, you usually have a second to, like, when you're pile drive, to like throw a nade or like do something before the mines activate. 0.5 seconds really matters here. He'll pop the mines and it'll just detonate almost instantly now, and it's just gonna feel way. You have to be a lot more snappier with a response if you want to survive. That's crazy. These are some huge Ball buffs. I think Ball, especially in top 500, Ball mains are really scary here because he's a high skill cap hero, high skill ceiling hero. People who are really good at Ball are going to be really annoying and really tough to beat. I think Ball might be S tier, especially with Hog being a great counter, being nerfed now. Arissa still plays pretty well into it, I would say, but like they've nerfed Arissa a bit, nerfed Roadhog a bit. Ball is next up right now. This guy's S tier, based on my initial thoughts, especially in GM. I'm not sure about the metal ranks yet. I'll have to see. Okay, and Zarya, ultimate cost going up with Grav. That's just similar to everything else. Nothing changes with their HP. Okay, and that's the tanks. So with Ball, yeah, you're gonna have to play like Sombra, Sleep Dart, Hook, Stuns, and Disruption, annoy Ball. You can only annoy Ball. It's actually very hard to kill him because he usually can just roll away if he's getting a little dicey. He's usually the last one to die. He just rolls out of danger. He's actually like hard to kill. You have to just pressure him out. I've seen some Ball mains, especially near the end of season 2. Sometimes they lose the game, but their KD is insane. They're at like 25 elims and 1 death, but their team is still losing. They just don't die because they'll roll away because they just have too much to go through. DPS Cassidy's actually pretty strong now, especially with Peacekeeper. The fall off range being increased in 2025 is a buff. It means his damage won't start ramping down until he's further away. He's stronger at the mid to long range. Combat roll no longer blocking enemy collision. This is pretty niche in terms of how often you actually roll through enemies, but this is a nice change. 2 buffs. And a third hidden buff is that new Battle Pass skin where you can't see his head, the invisible Cassidy. 3 buffs in 1. Goddamn. I think Cassidy's probably still a solid. He went from C tier in high elo to like B tier in high elo based on this. I think in like lower ranks, he's fine. He's always been more of like in the metal ranks, he's always been an A tier hero because of the magnetic grenade. Okay, Junkrat receiving a nerf where the maximum damage reduced from 120 to 100. Now the mine doing 100 only if it's up close. Your primary fire does 120, so you only need to do an 80 damage mine for it to kill someone. Now, your mine does damage based on how far the mine gets detonated from a target. So you have to be a little bit more precise and make sure you pop the mine closer to the target, or else the fall off range will kind of lower the damage. This just kind of nerfs his consistency. He's still going to be lethal with the one shots, but the consistency of it's going to be harder. You have to be better at Junkrat and time it a little bit better. This increases the skill cap, but he'll still kill people. Junkrat is like A, S tier in most ranks, especially end of season 2. I still think he's A tier. I think good Junkrats will be annoyed at the consistency, but they'll still be able to one-shot most people anyway, so this is not too big of a deal. It doesn't completely kill the character. Step in the right direction, because he was a little annoying. May's alt cost being reduced by 5%, that's a buff. I think May's a little underrated. People keep telling me that I'm underrating May, and I honestly think they're right, especially if they play Orisa, Ramattra, Roadhog. Any stationary heroes, May is super annoying to play against. Because the wall is obstructive, the slow. Yeah, May is underrated. May is underrated. Pharah, the ultimate cost being reduced by 5%. Small buff. Pharah's still a bit more niche. I thought Pharah was pretty good in season 1 when her ultimate was bugged, because her ult costed like 30% less or something at one point, which means she built Barrage way too fast back then. But they fixed that bug, and now Pharah's back to a more of a niche pick. I still think Pharah's really good on console, but at least in GM top 500, there's only like a few Pharah mains. Most people, if they want to play an air hero, they'll actually play Echo in high elos, but I think Pharah's more common in the lower ranks. With a Mercy pocket, she's fine, but we'll see that Mercy's getting a little bit of a nerf, if it's even considered a nerf later on, so maybe Mercy Pharah will not be as common. Reaper, a small buff, ultimate cost being reduced. I think Reaper's always been a solid hero. He's just kind of boring to play, but Reaper's always played in the Overwatch League, I swear to God, but he's just not that common in high elo. Moira and Reaper, two heroes that have very good, honestly speaking, as a hero. You can win games with them, but because they don't have high skill representation, they're just not common picks. Not because they're bad, but just based on that. I really think that's true. So, Reaper, probably still, honestly, A tier. But just uncommon, that's it. Okay, Soldier. These are insane Soldier buffs, just saying. Number of shots to reach maximum recoil increase from 4 to 6, which means you can tap at long distance, and the recoil by 12%. The recoil reduction isn't too big. This is this buff to metal ranks, but good Soldier players up close know how to control the recoil and pull down. You can basically shoot in the same spot the whole time. However, at long ranges, you can really feel this change, because you don't spray people from like 50 meters away, but you poke at them with like 6 to 8 bullets before the recoil kicks in. That is very, very significant. I tried it in the practice range. You can feel it at longer ranges for sure. So this is actually a really, really strong buff for Soldier, I would say. I think Soldier might be A tier. Sombra got gutted at the end of season 1. Sombra was meta in season 1, and then she got gutted. They nerfed like her hacked damage opportunist from 40% down to 25% and all that stuff. They're not changing that, but they are buffing her damage per projectile from 7 to 7.5. That makes her a bit more consistent to one shot or one clip if you have good tracking. And her hack on a health pack is going to be up from 30 to 45, which means you don't have to rehack it as often. You've control tempo and control space of Sombra. You control the health packs, Route 66 underneath the gas station. If you control that health pack and maybe underneath the cave, super, super powerful. Like 0.5 damage doesn't seem like a lot, but it's like it changes breakpoints on hack targets. This is decent. This is decent. This will probably bring Sombra back from more niche to like probably B tier, I would say. And especially if Wrecking Ball is going to get played a lot in higher elos, I'm going to see a lot more Sombras in my games. That's for sure. And if you're in metal ranks, if Ball is not that common, Sombra will still be a bit more niche, I would say. But yeah, Sombra's, I would say this is a decent change. It definitely bumps up her viability quite a bit. Good change. Iterative changes are always nice. Like slowly bump it up until it's like, okay, we're at a good spot. Symmetra's ultimate's gonna cost is gonna be increased by 10%. Symmetra's actually like been brought up to, I'd say, A tier near the end of season 2. People realize that she is a pretty good hero fundamentally. Strong hero, so a nerf to her ultimate is fine. She's really good on Control or King of the Hill maps. Anything that has centralized fights in one section is really good. Maybe on push maps where like the fight scene and area is always changing, doesn't allow Symmetra to set up as well, but any place where she can set up defense on hybrid or control, she's really dominant. So this is a small nerf. This isn't too big of a deal, I would say. Fundamentally, she's still a pretty good hero. Torbjorn, a small nerf to his turret with the move to 5v5. Torb's turret survives longer than ever. It feels less of a 6th player. 250 to 225 HP doesn't look like much on paper, but it changes breakpoints, especially for me as like KarQ. Trying to shoot this turret, it's like 1 less kunai to shoot. As Lucio, it's a couple less bullets. As Zenyatta, it's a couple less orbs. Turret will go down a little bit more. So you have to just be a bit more careful on where you set up your turret. I think Torb is still always a solid hero right now. Probably B tier. Okay, Widowmaker finally getting nerfed. We experimented with Widow at 200 health for a while due to concerns that the increased power of tanks made her too vulnerable. Ultimately, she gains more advantages from 5v5 than she loses, so returning her back to 175 to better enable more heroes to contest her lethal ranged capabilities. So, Widowmaker started dominating once again in high elos in mid-season 2, especially with Sojourn being nerfed a few times. Sojourn was still good, but Widowmaker was always lethal at long range. But when there was like a Winston, remember in season 1, it was like Zarya, and then there was like Winston and Diva, and then beginning of season 2, it was Doomfist. So 3 solid heroes that could always contest the Widow. So she wasn't a problem for a while, but once the meta shifted to lots of Roadhogs, Orissas, Ramatras, Widowmaker always plays out of range of these tanks. So once those tanks became meta, Widow started dominating again because no one could contest her. So now they're nerfing her HP back to 175. She was 175 in Overwatch 1 near the end, by the way. That's what they mean. For all the new Overwatch 2 players who don't know, they're reverting her back to her Overwatch 1 numbers to this. I like this because I hate dying to Widowmaker as a support. I'm usually out of range to do anything against her, so I think this is a good change. Although that being said, they're also buffing Ball this patch, and Ball's always been a great hero to contest Widowmaker all the way in the back. I don't think Widowmaker's got it. I think if you're good at Widowmaker, you're always going to be good. You can always generate value, control sight lines, and just one-shot people. I think this is fine, to be honest with you. Totally not biased. Anyways, Ana. I'm an Ana main. Effect duration reduced from 4 to 3.5 seconds for both the anti and the friendly. I think this is fine. I'm an Ana main. This doesn't change her too much. I think Ana's still good. It used to be 3 seconds in mid-season 2. Then they buffed it to 4. Now they're meeting in the middle at 3.5. Sure. No big deal. Brig. Repair pack. Instant healing will help Brig have more agency in saving an injured ally and generally makes it feel more responsive. I hate it, Brig, where someone's low, but I throw a health pack at them and they still die because it's a slow heal over time. Now, the heal over time is reduced from 55 to 50 per second. It's 2 seconds, by the way. So previously it would be 110 HP over 2 seconds. Now it's 100 HP over 10 seconds. However, you instantly heal for 25 on impact. That's pretty strong. I'm gonna test in the Mythbusters today whether, because Bap Brig was a pretty common support lineup in Overwatch 1. If Baptiste uses Window and I throw my heal pack through it, will the flat HP be increased on a teammate? Huh? I don't actually know. We're gonna test that later. My team will, and we're putting it in a video for tomorrow. This is a good change for Brig's consistency, and her rally is gonna cost 10% less. That's also a pretty big buff. Brig, pretty decent changes. I mean, Brig was always the lowest rated hero. I think she was always been a little underrated. She was just kind of a product of the meta. Like, she was always fine in the Junker Queen meta and everything, and especially in Overwatch League. This will make her really viable in like Lucio, Brig, Rushdown, Junker Queen comps. I think teams could run that again straight up, and it might be decent. Anyways, Lucio having his ultimate cost reduced by 7%. Lucio's small buff as well. Lucio's always been like an S tier hero in Overwatch League and high level play because of the engage and disengage. That being said, Mercy is a more consistent solo queue hero to pair with KarQ in high elos. So like Lucio actually was receiving less and less play. He's not too disruptive because he's like a pretty high skill cap hero. Lucio is always going to be good with Reinhardt now, especially with his buffs. Ryan Lucio Bap might be a solid pick again, to be honest with you. Viable. So this is fine for Lucio. Sound Barrier is one of the slowest building ultimates anyways. Mercy is receiving some pretty significant changes. So there's been a lot of discussion about this because this patch note was again released yesterday. I'll give you my thoughts on it really quickly. Guardian Angel increased from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. Holding backwards directional input and canceling the ability with jump now moves 20% slower. This is a big nerf. 1.5 to 2.5 seconds on Guardian Angel. Relatively speaking, 1 second in a 1.5 second ability cooldown is 66% decrease in its uptime. That is significant relative to old change. Mercy also has a thing where if you beam someone and you go into cover and you break line of sight, you have like a 1.3 second forgiveness timer where you won't have your beam detach, so you're able to jiggle into cover. So a lot of times Mercy will fly to a target with Guardian Angel, 1.5 second, have a beam on, fly into cover, and then right before the beam is automatically disconnected, she can fly again. That's gonna ruin that small synergy and have less slippery mobility. This is probably this is the biggest nerf to her in my opinion at first glance. The backwards GA thing, 20% slower. I tested it. I have side-by-side footage of it. That one doesn't feel that significant, and to be honest with you, the backwards bump, that one's fine, whatever. You can also just 180 if you don't want to move backwards. You can, a lot of Mercies do the whole lean in, lean back thing. If you really want to use the like full momentum, you could just go and then 180 turn and still go full speed. But in general, this one is whatever. This one's big. Second one is whatever. Now, the healing staff 55 to 45, that is a pretty big nerf. 10 HP per second is quite significant, changes a lot of breakpoints. However, the fact that it's 50% more under half health, this is more of a playstyle adjustment. Like, this is a huge movement nerf, but this is an adjustment. So they're trying to encourage you to damage boost more, and only when they get a little lower, you switch to heals. 50% more at under half turns this into 67.5 HP. This is more of an adjustment. More damage boost. So I'll have to see how this plays out. This is a buff for good Mercies who actually know how to damage boost. And you don't need to top someone off all the way to the top because your other support can take care of that. Or in higher level play, this one actually feels like a net buff because they're harder to kill. You can pocket someone who's getting focused down at half health and you're healing 67.5. That means Winston is unable to like kill someone because if he tries to zap them, I think Winston does 60 DPS. You're gonna out heal Winston's DPS significantly. It's way better for clutch healing and good timing. So this one, yeah, might be as an adjustment. Nerf in some ways, buff in others. Now, regeneration passive being removed. This is actually not that big of a deal, by the way. So her old passive regeneration increased her support passive by 50%. So she still has the support passive where she heals 15 HP per second after not taking damage. The old passive, just instead of being at 15, it was 22.5 HP because it increased 15 by 50%, so plus 7.5. So that means she used to regenerate to 22.5 HP per second after not taking damage. She will still regenerate 15 HP per second, so she loses 7.5 passive healing after not taking damage. However, she now self-heals for 25% of the healing done, so she can tank quite a bit, especially if they're under half health. And Valkyrie's staff healing is actually 60 HP per second. So if they're under half health, multiple chain targets means you're healing 90 HP per second across multiple targets, if they're all low, of course, which means she's gonna self-heal a shit ton. So Mercy can tank a lot more with this. So this is slight nerf, but I would say this is a net buff for her survivability. This is an adjustment. This is a net. These are both net nerfs. This is a big nerf, minor nerf, adjustment, minor nerf, buff. Now, this does not address the problem with resurrection or damage boost, which are two things that a lot of people were kind of like trying to talk about. Instead, it increases her tankiness. So in reality, she's not that much easier to kill because people were complaining about her also survivability. But the annoying parts were rezzing high value targets like tanks or snipers in the back, break points with the damage boost, kind of annoying. This is like a weird direction they ended up taking with her, but I don't think this guts Mercies. This isn't like she's unplayable, but she was pretty much S tier and high elo. She was more consistent, and KarQ Mercy was like the top choice back in the day, or at least as of yesterday when the patch didn't hit. But damage boost is still annoying. Tank is still annoying. Rezzing tanks is still annoying. I still think Mercy's gonna get decent play. Probably still a B tier hero in most cases. Okay. Moira, Coalescence, all costs reduced by 5%. Wow, so Moira's Coalescence is gonna be up a little bit quicker. Small buff. Moira's always been a solid hero to play. That's fine. And Zenyatta, small ammo buff, 20 to 25. I like this. Okay, so overall, with no Kiriko changes, I still think the top support choices will be Kiriko, BAP, and actually, in this case, honestly, looking at this, Ana's still viable. Brig is way more viable now. I think she's viable. Lucio's always viable with the right tank comps. Mercy's probably still viable, honestly, if you play like Sojourn still. The damage boost is still in the game. Rez is still here. Still good with flying heroes, and Ashe, still playable. Moira's always been really playable. Super slippery. Good balance between DPS and healing. Zen's a bit more viable. Honestly, I think almost all the supports are playable. I actually think supports came out pretty healthy out of this patch. This is actually a pretty good patch. This is a pretty good patch. In all cases, I don't see like how anybody can ever flame any support for playing a certain lineup. Unless you're playing like Echo Pharah and you're playing Lucio BAP. That makes no sense because BAP isn't going to consistently shoot those rockets up top in the sky, and neither is Lucio. But this is actually a really good patch for supports. And obviously I have the support bias because I'm a support main. I think every single one should be picked accordingly to how your tank and team comp plays around you. This is decent. This is good. I like this. I actually like the Season 3 patch quite a bit. I'm excited to see it. The only one I'm worried about is Wrecking Ball. He seems a bit overtuned. That is my biggest concern out of everything. All right, good patch.